He who will not use the thoughts of other men's brains prove that he has no brains of his own. Charles Spurgeon, Lectures to My Students. And we're going to look at chapter 13 because I think this is a very fitting chapter to what we're going to do continuing into the future with books. Lecture 13 is to workers with slender apparatus. So he's talking about those who have small libraries or little to no books. In this chapter, I'm going to go over some key points, and he talks about the need or necessity to having a library and how to obtain books if you don't have the means to. And back in the day, it was more expensive to get books and there was not as many out there. Today, we don't have that issue. We have more books than ever, but he doesn't just go over how to acquire books. He actually goes over getting the right books, quality over quantity, and so on, and things we can learn from besides books, which is surprising. Making a lecture about acquiring books or having a library, he also goes into the area of not even having one at all. And so we're going to hit all of these, about 5 points, 5 takeaways I saw that were pretty important. And so there's 28 lectures. It's a good read. I gotta say, this book is quality. It is condensed. It has a lot of nuggets of gold. Usually when we're going to do a book review, we'll have some coffee, a different type of coffee, but because of the person, him being an Englishman, I think it would be good if we do a tea rather than a coffee. So before we start, let's pour a cup of tea for all those people in England. And I thought it would be quite fitting to start with a tea called Victorian London Fog. And I picked this one because, of course, it's a tea, and London, the title of it is a London Fog, where Charles Spurgeon had his church there in London. Of course, this is not made in London or England at all. It's made actually in New York, but it is a very good tea. I like it. I'll go over what is in this tea in the end of the video and what the container says about the tea and how to brew it. All right. Don't mind the little sloth on there. My wife thought it was cute, and so we had to buy 2. One for her, one for me, so we were matching. Supposed to let it steep for about 5 minutes, and then you pull out the leaves. But I leave it in because I want as much taste of it as possible. So I have here 5 points, a bit of an intro, of course, to get into the book. But let's get started, and I'll pour the milk in a bit. The problem with society today is we listen to a lot of podcasts, and I do too. And there's people that listen to audiobooks, and they think they're learning, and they might think they're, increasing their wisdom. Let's get something straight. An audiobook is not the same as reading a book. Usually you're multitasking when you're listening to a book, to an audiobook, or you're working, or you're driving, or even, cleaning, working out, so on. But you cannot pay attention to both. You cannot give 100% to both. You might think you are, but there's things that slip through the cracks, and you might not retain as much as you would have done if you've read. And I'm not talking about fictional books or novels or biographs about people. That's more for entertainment, and it has its place. It's to take up, dead space, or, the monotony of life, and that's all right. But it's not for someone who wants to actually learn or grow in certain areas. If you want to grow in a certain area or be better, it is best if you would get a book and read it physically. Why? Well, having to read physically, it takes attention. It takes your full attention. You cannot multitask and give 100% to either or. You're either giving 80, 20, 50, 50, whatever the percentage is, you're not giving 100% to what you're listening to. Secondly, seeing and reading, especially reading out loud, gets more of our senses involved in remembering. There was a study done that says seeing and touching, visualizing and touching, you remember more than just hearing. They use the Chinese proverb, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. Physical books are actually important to us. Reading is important. And I think this is a great place to start off with our book reviews. So let me ask you something. And if I were to open your pantry and look at what food you have in there, what kind of food would you have? Would it be good food, or would it be a bunch of junk food? Now let me ask you something that's a little harder. If I were to go to look at your library, what would I find there? Would I find good food for the mind, or would I find junk food? We don't expect someone to go to work without any food, and we don't expect vehicles to run without fuel. So why would we expect to find rich, nourishing devotions or wisdom or even times of learning when we don't read or study? You know, some Christians have the intellectual diet of junk food. They have quick devotions, they have shallow studies. It is all empty, just fattening. A library is like a pantry. If that pantry is empty, the Christian will starve. They will starve their mind. They'll starve their thinking. And this is kind of what Charles Spurgeon goes over in this chapter. So let me go over the first point. A library should be looked at as a pantry full of food. Just as food is necessary to sustain the body, so is a good library necessary for mental nutrition. So the soul and the mind don't starve. Don't be like others filling your library full of junk food, but fill it with good, hearty books full of nutrition that will help you. Especially if you're a minister, you're a preacher, or a teacher. Someone in authority should have a good library, especially in the area they are working. A Christian should have a library about soul winning, about prayer, about Bible reading, studying the Bible, about if it's teaching a class, how to teach a class. They should have books about it. If you're a manager, find a Christian book about managing, something that supports what the Bible says, reinforces it, just makes it clear how to manage. Spurgeon actually suggests to the preacher that the church supplies or acquires some books for the preacher himself if he cannot afford it. This is what Charles Spurgeon says about this. If some little annual income could be secured to poor ministers to be sacredly spent in books, it would be a godsend to them and an incredible blessing to the community. Sensible persons do not expect a garden to yield them herbs from year to year unless they enrich the soil. They do not expect a locomotive to work without fuel, or even an ox or an ass to labor without food. Let them therefore give over expecting to receive instructive sermons from men who are shut out of the storehouse of knowledge by their inability to purchase books. He's saying, don't expect enriched sermons if the minister does not have a proper library. And I would say, don't you expect to extract a lot of wisdom yourself without good books. You know, one can go to a gold mine and extract so much by himself, but he can extract more if he had helping hands. And that's what books are. They're just helping hands to help you understand, learn, and get more nuggets of gold, of wisdom out of the Bible, out of life. On the other hand, there are people who build their libraries, but they're building museums. They're building libraries just to be looked at. Their shelves are full, but their minds are empty. We live really in an age where religion is a business. Books are marketed to the Christian community, even in the area of music and so on. There are people who corner the market of Christianity, and they're making money off of you, off of Christians. They take a little grain of truth and stretch it so thin to fill just a whole book of it so that they can make another book. They can sell another book. And not every book that says they are a Christian or is published by a Christian will strengthen you, unfortunately. And this brings me to the second point. That's good. smooth. It's a lot smoother, less acidic than coffee is. And I can really drink a lot of this over coffee. But this brings me to the second point. And Charles Spurgeon says this is get the right book rather than many. In a world full of bookmakers, he calls them word spinners. He says get the right one rather than having a vast library of empty books. You know, books are readily available and quite cheap today. You can get them at a used bookstore or thrift books online, as I mentioned before. But Spurgeon says this: if you can't afford many, find the right one, which is the cheapest of books that you are looking for. You don't need the hardcover, as I have, or the first edition. I don't have the first edition, but you don't need the special book. You can get a paperback. You can get a used book, the one that has just, you know, its pages wrinkled and whatnot, and you know, it still has the same information, even though it's not in the best of quality. This is Charles Spurgeon advice. If a man can purchase but very few books, my advice to him would be let him purchase the very best. If he cannot spend much, let him spend well. The best will always be the cheapest. This age is full of word spinners, professional bookmakers, who hammer a grain of matter so thin that it will cover a 5-acre sheet of paper. These men have their uses, as gold beaters have, but they are of no use to you. I like the language he uses, the analogies, word spinners and professional bookmakers, you know, hammering a grain of truth so thin it will cover a 5-acre sheet of paper. You know, it's just, to me, those give me it's like a little chuckle I get from them. But in a world full of people making money off of religion, you got to be cautious in what book you get. You don't want to waste your money and time on worthless books that are just full of fluff. The Bible even warns us about this in 2 Peter 2:3. He says, and through covetousness shall they through feigned words make merchandise of you. Through coveting of money, they'll make books and make merchandise of you. They'll make money off of you through their feigned words, through their books full of fluff. What Spurgeon says is get accurate, condensed, reliable, standard books. Get books that are not word salads. Get books that are condensed, like a piece of meat, steak. That's, you know, you get a pound of steak, that's going to really last you a while. I say, know the author. Know what they believe, know the standards they have, and avoid books full of just fluff. There's an animal out there that understands a little bit better than the Christian. You know, they chew their food more than once. They don't just chew their food and swallow it and go on and move on to the next field. They come back to it. They extract everything they can from it, and that is the cow. Meanwhile, we live in a generation that scrolls faster than they think. They skim through videos, they swipe, they summarize. Everything is quick. Everything has to be quick in a video to keep their attention. You know, we don't sit still. We don't wrestle, we don't chew, we don't think. Thinking has become a lost art. You know, collecting books is easy, but mastering one is hard. And most people want to choose easy over hard. This brings me to the third point of Charles Spurgeon's suggestion is master the books you have. Read them and reread them. This is how he puts it. The next rule I shall lay down is master those books you have. Read them thoroughly. Bathe in them until they saturate you. Read and reread them. Masticate them and digest them. Let them go into your very self. Peruse a good book several times. Make notes and analysis of it. A student will find that his mental constitution is more affected by one book thoroughly mastered than by 20 books which he has merely skimmed. Little learning and much pride come of hasty reading. Books may be piled on the brain till it cannot work. Some men are disabled from thinking by their putting meditation away for the sake of much reading. Like I said about the cow, who will go and eat some grass and afterwards will go and lay down and start chewing again. But this is not any new grass he's eating. It's actually grass he's regurgitated. And now that is kind of nasty if you're not a cow. But that's the nature of a cow, to regurgitate what he's eaten, to chew it again. Why? Well, it's to get all the nutrients out of it. It's to help his digestion. And this is called ruminating. You know, we need to ruminate on books. Go back to the book. After we've read it, go back to it and reread it. That'll help you digest what you've read. That'll help you secure and remember it a lot better than just skimming through it like he said. Many want to tout or glory in how many books they read a year. But if you ask them what they've read or what they remember about certain books, they'll come up empty-handed. He also said books on the brain cause disease. Get the book into the brain and you will grow. You might say, well, I have a hard time remembering or paying attention. Well, it's called working out. Someone who wants to gain muscle or strengthen their muscles, what do? They work out. But if they won't work out or stop working out, what happens? They lose their muscle or don't get stronger. And that goes with our attention span. That goes with our remembering of things. If we don't work it out, we'll lose it. You don't use it, you'll lose it. We can strengthen our attention span. We can strengthen our memory by working at it. So if you haven't gleaned all you can from your books, or if you don't remember what's in a book, or remember some key things about a book, why get more? Why not go back and ruminate on it? Why not go and reread it and get all you can? Write it down. By writing things down, it will vastly help you with remembering. You know, having a large library doesn't mean you're wise or that you'll learn. You might have the appearance of wisdom with a vast library, but appearance doesn't matter when it's called for action, when wisdom is called on. Spurgeon uses the analogy of another man and quotes him about men who boast of possessing large libraries, which they neither never read or never profit by. He begins by comparing such a person to a pilot who never learned the art of navigation, or a cripple who wears embroidered slippers but cannot stand upright in them. Then he exclaims, "Why do you buy so many books? You have no hair, and you purchase a comb. You are blind, and you must need buy a fine mirror. You are deaf, and you will have the best musical instrument." A well-deserved rebuke to those who think that possession of books will secure them learning. A measure of that temptation happens to us all. For do we not feel wiser after we have spent an hour or two in a bookseller's shop? A man might as well think himself richer for having inspected the vaults of the Bank of England. In reading books, let your motto be, much, not many. Think as well as read, and keep the thinking always proportionate to the reading, and your small library will not be a great misfortune. Like I said, I like Charles Spurgeon's analogies. They're very eye-opening and kind of amusing. But he is right. Don't buy many books when you're not going to read all of them. Read the ones you have, use them, and make sure you get everything out of the ones you have already. Point number four, what do you start with if you don't have any books? You know, a man does not need degrees to be dangerous, and you don't need a massive library to be a dangerous man. You need one book in your head and in your heart. Charles Spurgeon says that if you don't have a library, but you have the Bible, you have the best weapon. But of course, don't just read the Bible. There's many who just read the Bible through in a year, and that's good, but the Bible's not a novel. It's not something we just read. It's not something we just do. God tells us to study. Make it a part of your life, of your mind, of your thinking, of your heart, of your decision making. There's people with their favorite sports team, and they can tell you every statistic about them. They can tell you about the trades that were made. They can tell you about the men. They can tell you about the people that were on the team and who got injured. And they can tell you about the championships that were won, and so on. We should have the same enthusiasm, the same earnestness about the Bible as we do with our favorite team. If we would have the same kind of knowledge as we do with our favorite teams, we would be a dangerous Christian. You know, no matter how learned or unlearned you are in this world, you'll be the smartest person if you are wise in the Bible. This is what Spurgeon says about the man with one book. A man who has learned not merely the letter of the Bible, but its inner spirit, will be no mean man, whatever deficiencies he may labor under. And he says this, beware of the man of one book. He is a terrible antagonist, a man who has the Bible at his fingers' ends and in his heart's core is a champion in our Israel. You cannot compete with him. You may have an armory of weapons, but his scriptural knowledge will overcome you. For it is a sword like that of Goliath, of which David said, there is none like it. This is what he says about the lack of books. In case the famine of books should be sore in the land, there is one book which you all have, and that is your Bible. And a minister with his Bible is like David with his sling and a stone fully equipped for the fray. No man may say that he has no well to draw from while the scriptures are within reach. In the Bible, we have a perfect library, and he who studies it thoroughly will be a better scholar than if he had devoured the Alexandrian library entire. To understand the Bible should be our ambition. We should be familiar with it as familiar as the housewife with her needle, the merchant with his ledger, the mariner with his ship. We ought to know its general run, the context of each book, the details of its histories, its doctrines, its precepts, and everything about it. In books to suggest, if you're looking to get a book or where to start, is a commentary, and I cannot remember who the guy was. Unfortunately, I did not write it down. That means you're just going to have to read this chapter. I think you should start with Lectures to My Students. I would suggest that and then go on. Other than the Bible, where do you start? And I think this is a very good book for anyone. But of course, start with the Bible, then find books that are tailored to your area that you're going into or working in. If a preacher, go and find books about preaching and outlines and so on. You're a teacher, find books about teaching and how to teach, to be a better teacher, to pray, to study. If you're a layman, find books about being a Christian, a better Christian. Find books in those areas that just reinforce what the Bible says with the Bible's views. In today's society, we have a problem over the problem of a shortage of readers is a shortage of thinkers. And this brings me to the last point. Spurgeon says, be a thinker. Well, we need thinking men rather than just reading men. In today's world, we have few thinkers and many parrots. They just repeat what they hear. They don't go and inspect if it's right or wrong. They just repeat what they have heard, just like a parrot. Spurgeon says this about being a thinker. I would earnestly impress upon you the truth that a man who is short of apparatus can make up for it by much thought. Thinking is better than possessing books. Thinking is an exercise of the soul, which both develops its power and educates them. He says this also, thought is the backbone of study, and if more ministers would think, what a blessing it would be. Only we want men who will think about the revealed truth of God, and not dreamers who evolve religions out of their own consciousness. Nowadays we are pestered with a set of fellows who must needs stand on their heads and think with their feet. Romancing is their notion of meditation, instead of considering revealed truth. Spurgeon attributes his developing of thinking when he was just a boy coming back from school. He was allowed some extra time and he would go fishing, and as he would fish, he would catch a few fish, and he would spend time thinking, pondering about life, and also what the Lord would reveal to him, what he needs to do, and so on. We do need more thinkers than just hearers or listeners. He also says this, without books, a man may learn much by keeping his eyes opened. He's saying, keep your eyes open and think of what is taking place around you. History is being made around you. Situations that arise about you, learn from them. Spurgeon says this about nature of learning from it. If you have no books to try your eyes, keep them open wherever you go, and you will find something worth looking at. Can you not learn from nature? Every flower is waiting to teach you. Consider the lilies and learn from the roses. Not only may you go to the ant, but every living thing offers itself for your instruction. There is a voice in every gale, and a lesson in every grain of dust it bears. Sermons glisten in the morning on every blade of grass, and homilies fly by you as the sere leaves fall from the trees. A forest is a library, a cornfield is a volume of philosophy, the rock is a history, and the river at its base a poem. Go, thou who hast thine eyes opened, and find lessons of wisdom everywhere, in heaven above, in the earth beneath, and in the waters under the earth. Books are poor things compared with these. And then he goes on to saying, you can also learn from man. First of all, you can learn from yourself. You are a mysterious subject, he says. He says, moreover, however scant your libraries, you can study yourself. This is a mysterious volume, the major part of which you have not read. He also says, for the most difficult book you will ever read is your own heart. You can learn from your achievements and your downfalls and your slip-ups and so on. You can learn things from yourself. You can learn things from others, just observing others. Learn things from the wise. There's a lot to learn from there. You can learn from the fool also. As an open book, he says, they promote their foolishness. He says, read other men. Learn from the experienced saints. What deep things some of them can teach to us younger men. And you can learn from those who are on their deathbed. He says this, once more, be much at deathbeds. They are illuminated books. There shall you read the very poetry of our religion, and learn the secrets thereof. What splendid gems are washed up by the waves of Jordan. What fair flowers grow on its banks. The everlasting fountains in the glory land throw their spray aloft, and the dewdrops fall on this side the narrow stream. I have heard humble men and women in their departing hours talk as though they were inspired, uttering strange words aglow with supernal glory. These they learn from no lips beneath the moon. They must have heard them while sitting in the suburbs of the New Jerusalem. God whispers them in their ears amid their pain and weakness, and then they tell us a little of what the Spirit has revealed. I will part with all my books if I may see the Lord's Elijahs mount their chariots of fire. There's wisdom in books. And there's wisdom in life. And a worker with a slender apparatus and narrow mind will never grow. Open the apparatus, read deeply, think deeply. I want to end this chapter with a quote that I didn't know was from Charles Spurgeon until I looked it up. He who will not use the thoughts of other men's brains prove that he has no brains of his own. Find the right book, but don't give up on thinking. Other men's brains might help you learn a little more. Let me finish off the review, of course, with this tea. We have the Victorian Fog. Very good. It actually has some vanilla and some lavender. I can really taste the vanilla in it, but it is very smooth. Let me read you what they have here on the side. The beverage called London Fog originated during the Victorian era. Traditionally, it is an Earl Grey, served with steamed milk. This blend evokes the aroma of London Fog with hints of vanilla and lavender. And they give a little rating. Briskness is 1, aroma 3, body 3. Mike Harney's tea rating. Briskness, also known as astringency. Body, how strong or thick the brew is. Aroma, the potency of the smell. And of course, a rating of 1 to 5. But yeah, that's their little spiel on their side. And here's the brewing suggestions. Tea is only as good as the water it is brewed in. Use filtered water as needed. Use 1 teaspoon for each cup of tea desired. Pour the water at 212 degrees over the tea and steep for 5 minutes. Remove the tea leaves. Relax and enjoy. The ingredients here, we got black tea, oolong tea, lavender, natural vanilla flavor, natural bergamot oil. Caffeine is 40 to 60 milligrams, I think. But anyways, this is a very good black tea. Enjoy it. Has a lot of flavor to it, and it's just smooth. I don't get acid reflux from it. It's great. Get yourself some of this. I like Harney and Sons. That's the company I get the little tin from. I think we got it from Walmart. I think they had it there, or we had to order. We might have it ordered online, but you can get quite a few cups of tea out of this, and I like the loose leaf teas. They're just interesting. I'm not so big on those Lipton teas or other teas. I'm more of a loose leaf tea, or even if I'm going with a tea bag, a berries tea. It's actually an Irish tea, another black tea. It's very good too, and that's what I grew up on. And we still get boxes and boxes of them. But that's a good one. We'll do a taste test on that later on. Yeah, smell. I can definitely smell the lavender. I can definitely smell the vanilla in that. Fantastic tea. And it's a good one to get a book out and start reading. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I highly recommend you getting lectures to my students. We're going to go through probably all the chapters at some point, one by one. And I definitely need to go. I already made up my mind that I'm going to go through the book again. It's taken me a while to read it, but I'm trying to take notes and so on to get everything I can, because there's a lot of information condensed in here, a lot of good information, little snippets, and every page is packed full of wisdom, really. And I enjoy it. I wish I could be a writer like this, but this is better than any video, better than any entertainment. This has really been the best gift I have ever been given. My wife got me this for Christmas, and it is the best gift so far. I can't think of anything better, anything that I've kept like this and come back to. It's great. So get yourself one, start reading, build up your library with good, sound books that have material and not fluff. There's not many readers and thinkers out there today. There's just a lot of people that just want to consume. And don't be a consumer. Be a thinker. Be a reader. Become wise while you still have time. All right.